Showbie training video. I'm Kirsty Banks on the Early Years Teacher Team with Scottish Borders Council, and Inspire, I'm Early Years Inspire Strategic Lead.
Important. And I'm Kate Brown, another member of the Early Years Teacher Team, and I've been supporting many different settings with your amazing journey with Showbie this year. And as we come to the end of the academic session, we felt it was really important to consider different aspects of how we ensure that we make a really effective transition with our Showbie.
So we're aware that there's a few different things that need to be done practically with Showbie, and we've got Roddy Graham from the Inspire team, Inspire lead teacher, who's going to talk us through just some of the technical aspects of making sure that we transition the Showbie effectively from one year group to another. So we've got the practical of that coming. So horizontal transitions are those transitions that happen throughout the day, throughout children's lives. So they occur when children move between different education and care providers. They occur when, in the course of the day, they may spend time being cared for in the home by a parent, by grandparents, or other relatives. So the day-to-day transitions. Realising the Ambition also says that vertical transitions, these are those major transitions really as they go up through the school systems and throughout their lives really. They occur when the child moves through the early years system of services towards and including school. A vertical transition would involve the child moving from home to nursery, from nursery to primary school, and further on up as well. Also in Realising the Ambition, you'll see in the transition section that it talks about the 5 C's from Burns in 2019. And the main C is the child-centred part. So that is our all transitions, as all early years pedagogy should be, it's child-centred. So that's our first C. And Showbie supports us to be child-centred through our learning journals, through the groups. It just allows parents to have just keep in touch as to what their child's doing in the setting and what they're learning and their experiences. At times of transition, communication is one of our 5 C's. It's so important, and Showbie supports excellent communication really with both parents and with the staff and future practitioners. And we can communicate in terms of where the child's at with their learning, what they're interested in, but also communication to do with Showbie itself is really important. So keeping the parents well informed of how the setting uses Showbie and why they use Showbie, and just making sure they're really well versed on how they can log in, start their account and access their children's learning.
And collaboration.
Yes, collaboration. So that kind of mixes with communication.
Yes, there's some overlap.
Yes, so communication is more about communicating to somebody, the collaboration is getting something back. So the wonderful thing with Showbie is that we do get something back from parents. They can tell us about where their child is with their learning, about if they've got any individual needs that need to be highlighted when they start in the nursery, but then also going from one setting to another and collaborating with a P1 teacher, for example, if they're moving up into P1, getting them on board and with Showbie and helping them to understand where the children are at in their learning and if they've got any needs. Same as with the parents really.
And consistency.
Yes, consistency, that's another key one. So it allows the P1 teacher to see where the children are with their learning, as we've already said in Showbie, but also consistency of practice across the setting, so they can get a good idea of the experience that children have had in nursery, so they can then give as close to that experience as they can when they start P1 to ensure that smooth transition and that it's not a completely different culture and environment for them to come into. We've also got consistency with the use of Showbie itself though, and so staff across different classes and settings can ensure that their use of Showbie is consistent so that they have the same setup, they have the same format, because this is also important for parents who are using the Showbie so they don't then have a completely different experience of using Showbie in the year that follows.
You're also building upon those digital skills that the children have been developing in nursery to facilitate that evidencing of learning when they go forward in primary 1.
Absolutely, because if they've been independent with Showbie in nursery and then they come to P1 and there's no independence with it,
let's not go back.
So keep that independence going if that's already there. Yeah. So we've talked a little bit about how Showbie can support transition in your setting, and we're going to move on now how to transition your Showbie. So we're going to be, Roddy's going to come and talk about the more technical aspects of if you've got new children in your setting, how you can set them up. If you've got children going from ELK 3 to ELK 4, what you need to do for them. And again, if you've got children going from ELK 4 to primary 1, what you can do to transition their Showbie account as well.
And it's always important to note that in different settings you've been using Showbie in different ways, so what we're hoping to provide you in this section of the video is just points to consider, and actually discuss it as a team about how you want to move it forward and make sure it's relevant to what you are currently doing on Showbie yourself.
And that might be classes with learning journals, or it might be groups. You might be using it in different ways. So you just have to apply what Roddy is going to be talking through to your own setting.
Right, that seemed like a bit of a seamless horizontal transition to me between one room and the other here in the Inspire building. What we're going to start with on our little demo side of it is we're going to look at how to create a class first, because you can't get pupils onto Showbie until you've got your class created. Now, Kate, what are we saying in terms of our best kind of guidance in terms of creating the classes that are brand new, be it ELC 2 or 3 moving forward?
So this year we've been doing our sort of experiment year. People have been getting to grips with the tools of Showbie, and for most settings who've moved to a class digital learning journal platform with Showbie, we have had one class. But actually when we move forward, we have to be thinking about our child's experience and how to make that as seamless as possible, so you are not gathering a cumulative number of children year upon year. So what we are advocating that we do is we have 2 classes. You have a class for your ELC 4, your older set of children, and you have a separate class for your ELC 3, and if you have some ELC 2s in your setting, they will be within that secondary class. The reason for this is to make sure that during a 2-year cycle, or possibly a bit longer for considering our 2s, but we have that holistic view of the child's learning while they're with you in your setting, rather than having to move between lots of different classes. The children's work will remain together for the duration of their time in the ELC setting.
And then one of the beauties of it is if you've got an ELC 3 this year and then they go into ELC 4, you can just rename the class
without having to
create again.
Yeah, exactly.
So the spanner is your friend that you're going to need for the creation of the class. So when we tap on the spanner, you can see that we've got these 3 options here. It would be new class that we would tap onto. Once that has been hit, you're given a range of options down here. The name is important, and how would we kind of go about coding that name, would you say, Kate? What would you
I think it depends upon, from your experience moving from different schools, it's good to have the name of your the name of your school within the title. So you can see in some of Roddy's other classes, we've got BPS primary, but again, consider what the rest of your school are doing with the naming of their Showbie classes.
Yeah, so you would tap on where it says new class name, you would tap there and you were able to type it in there, so ELC 4, ELC 3, whatever you're calling it. Your class code is important. It needs to start with an E and it needs to be 6 digits long. If it's not, it means that your account is not in the EU database, so therefore it's not registered properly for Borders. So make sure that it's 6 long and starts with an E. These 2 sections here are up to you. If you want the students to be putting things into their own portfolios, they can. It's probably not needed in ELC 3 and 4, but you might want to do that if you want. Class access will probably be turned on. You just turn that to the right so that it then turns green, and that therefore means that parents then can see all of the things within the class, not just the portfolio section. Once you've decided on all of those things, you just tap on save and that new class will be created.
So that we are creating a new class for our 3s. These are our new children coming into the setting, possibly including some 2-year-olds. Will we use Borough?
Yeah.
So BPS, and we'll call it ELC 3. So again, for this year, we're going to label it as ELC 3. If you do have 2s, maybe you want to say 2/3, but of course this name, come next year, we will rename it to BPS ELC 4.
And to do that renaming, it's again just the spanner when you're inside the class. You would go into settings, and then that name is there, and it would just be simply delete the 3, put in a 4, press save, and job's done good enough.
So this is a class that goes for at least 2 years, and we're just going to be renaming the name. So we're keeping all the children's learning in one place. That holistic vision of the child's progression and learning is kept together.
So we're going to move on now to talk about how you set up Showbie accounts for new children if you've not been through this process before. What our advice is at the Inspire team is if your setting has more than 10 pupils, get in contact with your Inspire cluster support team member or lead teacher that's associated with your primary school, and they can get the account set up for you via the Showbie spreadsheet mechanism that's there. So you fill in a little spreadsheet with the first name, last name, give them a username and you put their Glow email in, and then Showbie does the hard work for you and they will place them into the class that is being created using their class code. If you've got less than 10 though, you may want to do it manually, or if you've got someone who joined your setting as the year goes on, this is the way that you can do it. So if we press on the Get Started button that's there on the screen now, you are choosing I'm a student because it's a student account. The teacher and the parent one wouldn't work at this stage, so we go I'm a student. We then put in there the class code that is generated. It has to be, as I said, 6 digits long and start with an E to know that you're in the EU database. So our one that we previously did was ETUN8V. Pop it in, press join class, and then you are given these options here. Now the one that we're going to go with is sign up with Microsoft, and that is using the child's Glow email address and password. So what we're going to do as part of this demo is we're not actually going to do it with a real pupil, but we're going to suggest you go sign up with Microsoft. When it comes up with the bar for their email, put it in. When it comes up with the bar for their Glow password, put that in as well, and it will get to the point that I'll show you on the next screen. So when you've signed up that pupil with their Glow email address, they will be landed straight into the class and then they will be a member of it. Now because in our little demo that we're doing just now, we've not set up any assignments, we've not put any content on the class, it is empty, but if you had a term 1, August till December for example, it would appear there and be ready to show you. Okay, so you can see that we're now back into my teacher account here. We've got our class there and our Mr. Blogs is attached to it now. What we're going to do now is going to show you how to get the QR codes, which you can print off and have in your setting. Kate, what's again the advantages of QR codes for nurseries?
We know several settings have been thinking about how they're promoting engagement of children with Showbie themselves. So they are printing off the QR codes and they're putting them in folders so that the children can use shared iPads or at times practitioner iPads to scan into their own account. Other settings are using them as a home from setting kind of communication tool just to facilitate the parents actually contributing to the child's learning journal. So this is a recap.
So if we go into our BPS ELC3 that we've been creating today, and if you come up to the spanner button at the very top, you'll see that we've got another wee sub-menu here. If we go into members, we can see that our demo pupil is in there now, but above that it says get QR codes. So when we tap on that button that's there, and then we've selected the pupil. Now obviously we've only got one for our training purposes, but you would have a number of them in your class. If you press on get QR codes underneath and continue that as well, then what we will get, this is just another wee caution button, is to say that they should be treated like passwords. So we're not looking for these to be on walls, we're not looking for them to be displayed out in the setting. We want them to be in a folder or somewhere safe because it is working like a password. So when we press continue on that warning message, it will then work its way through, it will get the QR codes, and then you can see there that we've got a sheet there and ready for it. If you press on share codes from the iPad, you can then either email it to yourself, you can put it into OneDrive for example, and then you can log in on your laptop in the setting and print those off, and they're ready to go from there. So next on our little list is we're going to go through how to invite parents to join the class and to have access to their children's portfolios and learning journeys. So if we press a little symbol up here, now this is what we call the microwave menu because it looks awfully like a microwave and it's far easier to work out if we just call it that. So the microwave menu gives us the options down here. If we tap on your name and your account at the bottom, these are the options that come up here, and this invite parents one is the one that we're going to choose. When you click on that, you will be given the option to then invite parents by pressing the green button. Then, you can send an individual invite to just one pupil, but generally when you're inviting parents you do it with multiples. So we press the green multiple invite there. You then at that point need to choose the class that you're going to be working with, that you're going to send the invitation to. So our one is BPS ELC3, so we'll press on that from the menu choice. You would then select all the pupils that are in that class. Press the green button at the bottom, and that would create our invite for Mr. Blogs' parents. You can view the handout if you want to. You can also email it yourself. The way that I tend to do it is if you press the view the handout option, it will give you it in PDF form. You can then press the share arrow in the top right hand corner, which is the square with the up arrow, and then again you can email yourself that, you can put it onto OneDrive, and then you can get that onto your laptop and print away.
And always remember, each one that you're generating, say you've got 5 new children, 10 new children, just remember these letters are specific to each individual child with their own specific parent code. So in the past I've been guilty of just handing out all letters, but just remember these are specific for individuals.
And another little tip is that if the code is 7 digits long and it starts with an E, that again means you're in the EU database, you're in the right place, and everything will work really well. So this letter that gets generated is just a kind of bulk letter that goes to everyone, regardless of whether you're in nursery or secondary school. Everyone gets the same letter. But this paragraph here isn't really relevant for nursery settings about collecting assignments from students, providing feedback to them. So what we kind of say for ELC staff is to either take this off, just put like a black pen through it, or provide an additional letter that gives a bit more information about how you are actually going to be using Showbie in your setting. But as I say, this is a generic letter that goes out to everyone, so it's just the way that it is.
It might be worth clarifying that as you send them out.
Yeah, and some settings do a kind of a parent information session as well, which can be an option for that too. Or it might be that if they're visiting the setting in the very early days of their child starting in nursery, that discussion takes place at that point. So the first thing that we're going to talk about in terms of transitioning between ELC 4 and Primary 1 is getting your Primary 1 teacher to join the nursery class if they haven't already done so. So what you need to do is to go into your class, tap on the wee spanner to bring up this menu to get that class code again. Once you've got the class code, you want to provide that to the Primary 1 teacher, admit them into the class so that they've got access to everything that's been going on over the course of the last academic year, and then they can see everything that they've got for their learners that they're going to be taking in August. Okay, so we're going to move on now to talk about the transition between ELC 4 and Primary 1. The first part of that would be to include your Primary 1 teacher as a member of the class. So when you're in the class, we've got our BPS ELC 4 class here. Tap the wee spanner, you can see our settings menu that comes up, and in here we've got our class code. When you give that class code to the Primary 1 teacher, they can then join that by pressing the Join a Class option. Then you will need to admit them in, because the teachers always have to get admitted into classes, and then from there on they would have access to that class.
So we're thinking about our collaboration there to make sure that the P1 teacher who's receiving all your ELC 4 children know exactly where the child is as an individual. They'll be able to see their interests, they'll also be able to see where they are in their learning. So providing that consistency of academic provision in Primary 1.
We're going to talk about the portfolio section. So you may have seen that in the portfolio section when you're in a student's profile. You can see the portfolio section in gold with the star. This might be a useful thing to do in terms of Primary 1 transition, because you may wish to put some significant aspects of learning into the portfolio to save your Primary 1 teacher going through the entire year. So it looks like a quite decent way of doing it. So if we tap on portfolio, you can see in Ben's profile we've got one photo in there already, and that will stay with Ben for however long he has Showbie for, as long as the classes are active. We'll talk about that later on in the video towards the end. But we can see there that that photo has been put in. What we're going to do is we're going to jump to the assignment that this happened on and show you how to actually put something into the portfolio. So when we're in an assignment, there's 2 ways to do it. One way is if you slide it across to the left, you get a little option there, and the star button can be pushed on, and that can turn it into the portfolio. The other option, which is possibly slightly easier, is to tap on the photo, you then get the bar with all the annotations. You can see that that's not gold. So you turn it on, press it, you can see that it turns to gold, and therefore you have it here. And that's how you add something into the portfolio for teachers to use.
Just remember that this is just flagging, it's just highlighting that this is in the portfolio. It doesn't actually move anything, and it must, this picture that's what's been put in the assignment must remain in the class. That's where it is actually saved.
Okay, we touched upon QR codes earlier in the video, but what we're now going to look at is specifically the ELC 4 children that are going into Primary 1 and an easy way to share those codes with Primary 1 teacher. So when we're in our menu, we've tapped on the spanner. If we go into members, we've got our get QR codes option as we did before. Now obviously we've only got 1 pupil in our class, but when we tap on get QR codes, you will be given all of your pupils in here. And for some people, if you've got a mix of ELC 3 and 4 at present, you can then select all the ELC 4 pupils and just get the QR codes for them. So therefore you've got just those ones that the P1 teacher is going to be getting. Or even if you've got, for example, a massive setting with loads of ELC4s that are going into multiple classes, you can select the ones that are going into one Primary 1 class, another Primary 1 class, maybe even a Primary 1-2 composite class, and then hand those QR codes over. The P1 teacher can then easily scan those QR codes, put in the new class code, and generate that for them in a very easy way.
And again, we're looking at the consistent use of Showbie. So in the past, we may have had new accounts being made for our children, but actually what we're looking for with each child is for every year of their education that there is evidence of their learning so that we can assess the progress across the course of their primary education.
So we're moving towards the end of this video just now. What we're going to move on to is talking about the whole kind of aspect of archiving the class, or as we're now going to put forward, not archiving the class, because that's not what we're trying to do. So we're in our class here, and this is an ELC4 class that has come into the end of the year. It's June, we're wanting to move on into the next session. We still want this class to be live though, so that pupils and families can look back on their journey next year, but also for many years to come. So if we go into the spanner option, we can then press on members and move across to the teachers part. Now you can see here that I am the only teacher in this class that we created, but there will be a number of them in the settings that you're in. Someone needs to stay in that class to keep it live. So that might be that you appoint a Mr. or Mrs. Showbie in your school that takes charge of all the school places. It might be that you create maybe a kind of dummy account that stays as that person in your school as well, but you need to have someone in there. If you are wanting to leave the class though, all you need to do is tap on yourself. And then, because I'm the only member of this class, it doesn't appear, but there will be a red button here that says request to remove from the class. So you press on that and then you leave that class, but someone needs to stay on. But because I am the only one in this class, I have to stay on because I am there, basically. So what we're trying to say there is that there needs to be one person on it. So there is a button that, and I've kind of talked about this before, about this whole archiving thing. So if we close this off here and press on Settings Banner and then go into Settings, you can see that there is an option to archive the class, and there is a bit of a myth, a misconception that if you archive the class, it means that it stays open, but you just don't see the stuff that's in it. That's not the way that it works. An archived class means that all the things that are inside it are no longer visible to pupils and families. You will still be able to see it if it's archived, but not them, and we ultimately want them to still have access. So please don't press the archive.
So if I was
class
to be a
option.
child, if I am Joe and I log into my child's account and you've archived it, there'll just be nothing there.
There will be nothing there yet. He won't even know that the class is there. It doesn't exist in his Showbie. So we need to avoid pressing archive class. Have one staff member still attached to it. If you want to stay on, you're welcome to do so if you want to have that. But your feeds, as you can see here, if we go into the microwave menu, my feed, because I am a Mr. Showbie in quite a few schools, is quite cluttered, and you will have a lot of classes in there through time, so we're kind of advising you to leave that class when you're ready to do so that you're not got multiple classes in there. What you might want to do though, is especially if you are the Mr. Showbie or Mrs. Showbie, is to put a little X in the renaming section, so that would go to the bottom of the list, because your Showbie classes are in alphabetical order. Now, unfortunately, we do have a Y nursery in our authority. Is it Yetum?
Yetum.
So Yetum might want to go with a Z before there so that it goes to the bottom, but if you put an X before it when you're renaming it, you will then see that will go to the bottom of your list. So that's
Am I right in saying that that's only for whoever is remaining in the class?
Yes.
For most practitioners, they are going to exit the class, wave goodbye to their ELC4s who are going forward into primary 1,
Bye-bye.
and they only retain 2 classes year on year. It'll be the ELC 2s and 3s,
Yep.
and the ELC 4s.
That's the one. Yep, definitely. Okay.
Thank you so much for watching. I hope that's given you a bit of food for thought and things to consider as you're preparing to transition not only your children but also evidence of their learning from your ELC setting to primary 1.
And if you want any more support, we're always here. Kate, just give Kate and I a call. We'll happily come out and support your transitioning of Showbie. There's also the lead teachers at the Inspire team and the Inspire cluster support teachers who are across the primary schools, and you'll probably know who that person is anyway. So just get in touch and the support's there.
We'd also like to signpost you to the next block of training that the 3 of us are presenting in May.
Yes, 23rd of May, Tuesday the 23rd, 6:30 to 7:30 in the evening. we've got an online live session with the three of us, and we are talking about
how to take your Showbie that next step. So it's really appropriate for people who've been on a journey this year, have possibly dabbled with groups, maybe created some digital learning journals, and actually want to take it that next stage forward.
And we've also got the same session, the identical session to that, happening on the Friday of the same week. So that's the 26th of May from 2 to 3 p.m. in the afternoon.
So please get yourself on Business World and sign up. Thank you so much for your attention. See you soon.
Bye.